Hello, hello. Welcome to the 10 Laws with East Forest podcast. I'm East Forest. I'm coming to you this week with a podcast with my dear friend, Mr. Trevor Hall. Trevor was someone who we were blessed enough to have do a featured guest spot on the Ram Dass East Forest album. And as you know, I hope Chapter 1 of the album is out. It's out now in the world, including Trevor's track, which is called Mind Karma. And I got a chance when I was passing through Boulder, Colorado, to stop by his house and chat with him and Emery, but we went upstairs to his little studio sanctuary room, and I wanted to ask him a bit about his process in what he came up with and the recording of his vocals for the Mind Karma track, which if you haven't checked it out, definitely do. It's in this podcast, but the podcast is kind of lower bit rate because of the hosting services. So if you want to hear it in its full glory, the best, we can go to Bandcamp and get it in completely lossless WAV file, but even a high res on Spotify or Apple is good too. But it was really great to get to dive into Trevor's thought process and creative process into this song, but he was gracious enough to give us a lot more time, and we got into his larger creative process and some about his story of his relationship with the Maharaji Neem Karoli Baba, who, if you know, that's a big part of this record in Ram Dass. So it's all kind of woven together, and I think you're really going to enjoy getting this look behind the scenes into his process and this particular track, Mind Karma. Thank you for reviewing this podcast. You just have to scroll down there and find the place where you can give it 5 stars, or even better, just type in a couple sentences about what you like about it. That means a lot to me, and it really helps other people pull the trigger if they're digging around for potential podcasts. And really, we're just in conversation here, all of us, as a way of crafting a new story, giving some tips and tricks, and sharing, what works in our lives that maybe can inspire you. And on that note, please enjoy this conversation with Trevor Hall, and I hope you are enjoying the new music with Ram Dass. If you are, let me know about it. info@eastforest.org. You can give us your questions and your comments and your PayPal shekels, and we'll keep this ship sailing straight. Okay, here it is, Mr. Trevor Hall.
Our minds give us clouded perceptions.
So I just sent you, actually you chose the song. Let's start there. Why did you choose that particular track? What gravitated you to that? Or was it just sort of like there was melody there, a space, or because the others didn't? Or?
Right. I don't really have maybe a logical explanation. I think obvious, not to get too...
You can nerd out on it.
Not to get too nerdy outy.
Yeah.
But, music is vibration, obviously, and the reason I love music is that I'm not thinking logically, and that it's based off of feeling, and I think I just went through all the songs, that...
Oh, I sent you all of them?
Well, you sent me maybe like 5 or 6, I think. But I just went through all of them and just kind of picked a few that it was just like, what can I provide something on this? Does it make sense? Or I really like this song, but I don't think I can serve this song. I think it's either done or what I have in mind maybe won't fit this song, Mm-hmm. So it was more of just kind of like a thing of going through them and just seeing which one spoke to me the most and which one I think that I could actually provide something on. I think that, what is it called again? Mind Karma?
Mind Karma.
Mind Karma, yeah.
When he says that line, your karma is your mind, which always made me think of a trippy statement.
I think this project too, just it being special with Ram Dass, I was also feeding off of his vibe and what he was talking about and what I felt connected to, I guess, at that moment. And that Mind Karma one was just the one that I was like, okay, I feel like I can do something here.
Do you remember your process at all of actually, like, when you were like, I'm going to pick up a guitar or my voice, and like, you know, what you went through, if you had any process of like what worked or didn't work, or just you can talk through like your private process.
Yeah, it was definitely like a harder process than normal. I think.
Were you alone or? You know?
Yeah. I was. I'm usually always alone when I'm writing or stuff's coming through, but I think this process was harder for a few different reasons. One, that Ram Dass is like one of, you know, my OGs, and it was just kind of being like, whoa, this is happening, you know, with Ram Dass, and I want to do this justice, right? That was kind of the first thought that was going through my mind. The second thought was, how do I provide something that serves what Ram Dass is saying and not like take away from it, you know? Because at first I was kind of like, oh, like I'm gonna like write some words, you know, I'm gonna write some words for this, and I'm gonna like come up with like a verse. You know, it's kind of like when somebody asks you to guest on a song, it's usually what you do. You write a verse, and like that's that, you know. And then I realized, you know, this is not a normal song. This is not a normal, I guess, like way of collaborating, you know, because this is a meditation, you know, and I wanted to do something that served the meditation, that blended into the song, rather than it being like, I guess, like featuring Trevor Hall, like, you know, doing some like verse. Which it is. Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, where it's like, I'm going to write this like verse, you know? Because I didn't want, because obviously what Ram Dass is, what he's speaking is so powerful. I didn't want to kind of add any other like thoughts to like his space, I guess. So that was kind of going through my head, you know? And it took me a while to like, you know, I didn't like pick the song and then like come up into my room and record it, you know? Like I picked the song, I listened to it, you know, a day went by, I listened to it again, you know, a couple more days went by, I really tried to like, okay, what am I going to do here?
Did you record other things you didn't use?
No, I just kind of went from, I had thought about it a lot before. So I kind of, when I started, I had a little bit of a clear vision of what I wanted to do to like serve the track. Do you tend to record
quickly when you record?
It depends, you know. I think this one I really was being like kind of a perfectionist and really wanted to like make sure it was perfect for not only you but Ram Dass and the whole project. And it was more for me just like, just trying to like find that balance. Whereas like I said on another song, you know, somebody asked you to like sing a verse, you know, you're like, cool, I'm going to write this verse and I'm going to, you know, spit these lyrics, you know. It wasn't like that on this. It was a much deeper process of just trying to serve the track and make the meditation, I guess, serve the meditation of what he was saying.
You chose, so you ended up singing a mantra, right?
Yeah.
Why a mantra, and why that particular mantra?
I think what happened for me was the first thought came of like, I don't want to sing a verse on this because I don't want to add anything to what Ram Dass is saying. He's saying enough powerful things here, you know, like I didn't want to like complicate things. So that was the first thought that entered. Then it was like, well, if you're not going to do that, then what are you going to do? You know? And at first I thought, well, maybe I'm just going to like come up with this harmony part that's kind of like a choir in a way, you know, to kind of serve what he was saying, et cetera, et cetera. And then, you know, writing music or singing music or whatever, like I said earlier, is not really a mental process for me, you know, or I try not to make it. It's about feeling. And as I was kind of recording those harmonies and going through the song, that mantra just popped up. and I thought, okay, this is what's going to work here. I have like, what do they call it where you like see colors when you like hear music?
Well, synesthetic.
Synesthesia, right?
Senses
right.
switch in a way.
So like,
you know who else has that?
Oh.
She says Pharrell.
Okay, well, hey, maybe I'm the next Pharrell. Shoot,
it's your next producer.
But for me, like every mantra, every name of the spirit or whatever you want to say has a different color. It has a different energy, it has a different vibe. I mean, it's obviously all coming from one energy, but there's different aspects to each name, for me at least.
Yeah.
And when I was listening to the song, it was presenting me with a certain color, and I wanted to, I guess, match that color vibrationally, and the holy mantra, of Om Namah Shivaya was really just what I saw, visually, not only sonically, to match the energy of the track,
What does it mean? Because it's Shira, Jairam, JJ. No, wait, I'm thinking of the other song you did that on. That was
a reminder.
Yeah, sorry. This one you did.
Om Namah Shivaya.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Om Namah Shivaya is obviously a really popular mantra. They call it I think they call it the Pancha Taraka mantra, Pancha, because it's 5 syllables, or the holy 5 syllables or whatever. But, there's many ways that you can translate it, obviously. Om is the first sound, obviously. The vibration, everything comes from one sound.
Mm-hmm.
Nama is I bow to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Shivaya, I mean, Shiva is a god, a form of divinity in the Indian tradition. The first yogi, kind of the destructive aspect of creation, brings new life. You can kind of translate it that way. But I think the word Shiva actually means like that which is good. Like I bow to that which is good, or goodness. And there's so many different ways to translate it. I personally don't like to try and like logically translate mantras, because I feel like they're like not of the mind. Yeah.
Well, that's what's just interesting. Well, that's interesting because the song's called Mind Karma.
Right.
It's talking about the mind being your karma.
Right.
And then the interplay of like this mantra against that.
Right.
And actually weaving.
Right.
There's 3 main elements I see in that song. It's the mantra that you put in, his words, and that flute.
Yes.
Which to me ended up being like this really cool thing, like almost like thoughts.
Right. Right. Yeah.
In between the things.
Absolutely.
Really artfully.
Right.
And I was like, oh, that was a really cool way that turned out.
Right. That was another aspect of the song too, because the flute was such an integral part of the track. I was also trying to play off that flute and not overshadow the flute. And
Sheila Bringy, who lives in Boulder.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
so beautiful.
She plays like harp, plays everything.
Yeah,
sings.
it was so beautiful. So there was those elements of the track where it's not only Baba's words, but the flute, and trying to weave my way through all that, It was interesting, like hearing Baba's words about the mind, and the mind being our karma, and the mind spinning out, I guess the cycle of things, and I think ultimately from like a spiritual aspect, there's the aspect of getting out of your mind, or calming the waves of your mind, stilling the mind, whatever you want to say. And I feel like the mantra is is one of the most popular, or in India, no matter what's school or tradition or saint or whatever it is, all of them celebrate the divine name or the mantra, because it subdues the thought waves. It takes the breath out of our thoughts, right? And we can kind of step into that witness aspect, I guess. And I think it just natural for me. It was just like a natural flow to sing a mantra there, out, because, again, I didn't want to add any additional thoughts or anything to what Ram Dass was saying, but how am I going to, how am I going to serve the track and sing something that adds to it? And the divine name adds to anything, everything.
And Ram Dass, it kind of makes sense too, because he's into a lot of mantra and kirtan.
Absolutely, yeah. It's that's always been my main practice too, is the repetition of the name. And I always, it's there's so many amazing things that saints and people say about the name, like Maharaji, who's Ram Dass's.
It's just tripping me out though. The story I just told you now over your shoulder.
Yeah, Maharaji's looking
at the left shoulder instead of the right shoulder.
He's everywhere.
Yeah.
Maharaji said a beautiful thing about the divine name. He said, the divine name, repetition of the divine name bring, whether in anger or lethargy, whether happy or sad, like this, the repetition of the name brings out bliss all around, and on being thus enlightened, there's no room for any misgivings. That's what he said,
There's no room for any misgivings.
And Maharaji, he, wherever he was, he traveled with kirtaniyas, these people that pretty much sang the divine name 24 hours of the day.
Really?
Yeah, no matter where. He from Vrindavan, and they would just sing Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare, like all day long, and Maharaji's main thing was Ram, repeat the name, and they said that when sitting with him, you could always see his thumb. He was doing japa, the repetition of the name on his hands all the time. Ram, 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 Ram. So, we can extol the name, praise, I guess, the name infinitely for all time. And so for that track specifically, I just, if you're going to add anything, you might as well add the divine name,
Yeah.
So yeah.
It was sort of like, then you've got that's sort of like the divine name mantra, this super consciousness thing going, and then Ram Dass is representing the intellectual idea of the mind and thinking the battle, and then that flute thing's kind of the musical representation.
Right.
I never thought about it that way. That's actually kind of an interesting way it panned out.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting that he's talking about the mind and the karma, and then having something like the name within the track that is pretty much the thing that they say, all the saints, and say that it subdues our karma. It changes our karma.
Wow.
It go, because we are what we think. In a way. I think Baba's kind of talking about that. And Sri Ramakrishna has a beautiful quote where he says, "The mind is like a cloth, right? And if you take that cloth and you dip it in red dye, everything's going to be red. If you take that cloth and you dip it in blue, everything's going to be blue. So we want to dip the mind into the highest vibrational thoughts that we can, because then all we're going to see is spirit, consciousness everywhere. We're going to see oneness, So that's, I think, one of the ideas behind the name and changing our mind karma, I guess, as Ram Dass is talking about, is kind of rewriting, reprogramming, our minds to only see that vibration of pure consciousness in everyone and everything, It's funny, I remember there's a Maharaji story where they were asking him, I've done so much japa, I've repeated the divine name so much and nothing's happening, And he's like, you don't know what's happening, right? Just do it, He said these yogis and saints have been repeating the divine name for thousands of years, and you do it for a couple of years and you expect a result. That to me shows how much our mind karma, how deep it runs, how thick it is, and how much we've, I guess, wrapped it up and other thoughts, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And how also how powerful the divine name is. We don't even know what's happening, when we're repeating it. We don't know what's happening in our minds and in our bodies and vibrationally and all this stuff. But we have to trust the ones that have gone before us, like all these saints and yogis and realized beings and shamans and, normal people, whatever it is, that have been doing these practices. They're the kind of proof,
Do you think there's a Western translation, in a sense? Like, do you think it was important that if you're repeating, say, Ram, there's obviously a lineage with that in India, and so it also has like more of a actual cultural power in your own brain if you're from that culture. Let's say you're not, right? Do you think there's
like all of us,
is there another way you should be doing it, or is it does not matter?
Meaning what? Like,
well, I understand the idea, right? Just even from a cognitive behavioral standpoint, like just training your brain, right, and that opens certain energy portals because your thoughts are going in a certain direction, right? But what if the word Ram has no meaning to you? It just doesn't have, you don't even know what that means.
Maharaji also answered that, he said, and I may botch this, but he said something along the lines of, you're repeating your fake Rams, right? And he was like, just keep repeating it, and one day you'll say the real Ram, And you'll like understand. A riddle, but that sounds like but it's statement. It's it's like one day you'll understand, and that's what I think he was saying too. Is like even in anger or lethargy, or if you don't feel any, it's not about feeling something. I feel like that's. We want to feel something. We want to feel enlightened and all this stuff, whatever. But it's something deeper. It's like a selfless thing. It takes you out of yourself. It takes you out of your own story, And I think that we want a translation, right? Especially us Western folks. We want a translation because we want to. We're so obsessed with explaining things and understanding things and knowledge because it gives us a sense of control. And the things that we can't explain, things that we don't understand, we push away because we know we're not in control. And we don't like to admit that we're not in control. And I think that's one of the powerful things about the mantra is that we can't adequately define the mantra. I mean, we can say a few things. Oh, Ram was a god and he had like a bow and an arrow and all this stuff. But is that really like, what Ram is? We don't know, And I don't think it's something that like, oh yeah, I know what it is now. It means this, I personally don't like that route. I don't want a meaning. I think about way too much other shit.
How could it have a meaning in a sense?
Exactly. Yeah. In my mind, that's my mind. But you say, oh, Ram is light, or Ram is peace, or Ram is whatever. I just try to listen. And not understand because I'm so obsessed with understanding everything else, and it drives me completely bonkers and mad. Yeah. And that way, I think with the track, it was so interesting for me to, number one, like just gravitate to that track, because here Baba is talking about the mind and the mind spinning our karma, and oh man, every thought we have is either what they call coming from our prarabdha karma, which is stuff in the past, or we're spinning a new cycle forward. And you're like, sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I'm trapped in this freaking cycle. And the only way I know how to get out of this cycle is by repeating the purest vibration I can, the stainless vibration that has no karma.
Is that why you put it into your own music sometimes?
Yeah, I think.
Or is it not really thought through?
I think it. There's a lot of reasons why I put it into my own music, because I personally believe in the power of the divine name.
It's like transmitting that energy out there, not beyond yourself.
I believe that the divine name carries the purest or most intense vibration, whether we feel it or not. And any place or anywhere that it's spoken, or even repeated mentally, it changes that atmosphere. And that's why, and music is obviously super sacred to me. And so why not put the name on, I know there's this amazing Hawaiian auntie named Auntie Pua, and she's a really good, she's a really good guide for so many people, Nahko and me and her and her daughter Havane. They're kind of the main people behind the movement of We Are Mauna Kea, which is the sacred mountain and on the Big Island, right? And they're trying to build this big telescope on top of this mountain, and they've fought off the telescope company, and now the telescope company is coming back, and they're going back up the Mauna again and standing strong, right? But the reason I was telling the story was because she told me, I don't know if it was on her daughter's CD or or something else, I forget, but she recorded herself chanting their divine chants, the Hawaiian chants, right? And she recorded it, right? And then they took that file or track and they put it under her daughter's music, and they just turned it all the way down. And she was saying that it doesn't matter if you can hear it or not, it's the vibration of that space and that sound and that energy that's under the track. So you don't even hear it, it's on mute.
Right.
But it's that space.
So it's not even it's hard to hear.
No, it's not there. It's not there audibly, but they turned it all the way down and they put that space or that silence under all of her daughter's music. That's cool. I was like, man, that's amazing, And that's, I think, a perfect example of the power of the name and those vibrations.
I had a friend who did these not meditations, like energy work with me, but he'd record them. He'd say, I want you to listen to these later. It's keep doing the work.
Right.
But it was silent. So, he'd ask me a question, and there'd be an hour of just he's doing something in his house.
Right.
And then later I'd get this MP3 and there'd be nothing there.
Right.
And I'd be thinking to myself,
right.
This is an interesting process.
Right. Yeah, for sure. That's very interesting. That's very interesting.
Can I ask you another question about, or just a couple more questions?
Yeah.
I'm noticing obviously Maharaji.
Right.
And how we were talking earlier before we recorded this about sort of his role in this whole process with this record and sort of the deep guidance he's been providing.
Right.
I'm just curious, I'm sure you have a story of how he came into your life, because I'm sure like me, he didn't start that way.
Yeah.
And I know for most people, it's sort of an interesting way that it blossoms into your life.
I love hearing how people,
for me, it was a picture.
How that being, comes into one's life or changes,
You read the books, there's the Love Everyone, the newer one, that's stories about him, and that was an older one.
Yeah, so the my favorite one, I guess you can say, or what really hit me was, I was in boarding art school in high school in California. This place called Idyllwild. It's a beautiful school, but it's also a beautiful place. And I became really good friends with this kid named Sam Marcus, who's Raghu's younger brother. Yeah. Right? So we became really good friends, and we were recording songs together. He was a rapper.
Didn't he help you with Lime Tree?
Yeah, he co-wrote the song.
Way back?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we were best friends. Just huge inspiration in my life, really.
I met him.
Did you meet him?
Well, he came to the show in San Diego.
Oh, yeah. Right? He was there. He came with his wife. Yeah. And anyway, he invited me into his room one night and to spend the night in his dorm room, and we were going to make music all night, whatever. And he only had one picture on the wall, and it was Maharaji. And I remember just looking at the picture and just being I know that person.
Do you remember which picture?
I don't. I wish I did.
It wasn't that one?
No. No, this was given to me by my teacher, actually. It was one of the first pictures that my teacher in high school, who was also a devotee of Maharaji.
But it didn't... Well, it's
unrelated,
the same period,
unrelated.
Right?
Yeah. But it was interesting that a teacher, there was a devotee of Maharaji as well. But I remember just seeing the photo, and I was like, who is that? Is that your grandfather? Like, and he said, no, he's an Indian saint that my brother and dad were with in India. And look, dude, I'm from South Carolina. Like, I don't, Indian saint. Like, I'm like, what is that? You know? And he started telling me, and he told me about his miracles and all this stuff. And then he brought out this book, Miracle of Love, which was compiled by Ram Dass.
Yeah, it's the first big one of stories, right?
Yeah. That's specifically, I think, about Maharaji.
It's all stories of Maharaji, yeah.
And I just stayed up the whole night. I didn't go to sleep, and I just reading stories. But that was it. Like, my whole DNA just changed, everything. But there was a book called By His Grace. That is a book by Dada Mukherjee, who was one of Maharaji's main devotees. And that was the book that I was like, this is it. Like, I don't know, anything really, but this book, the feeling, the culture, because he was an Indian man, an Indian devotee, and he's just kind of writing about how Maharaji came into his life. I just knew, I was like, this is it. This is it. And it was pretty interesting. That was in 2003, I think, 2004. And that book, I read it a million times. It was just, that was it. I don't know. I not only because it was so intimate with Maharaji, but the way Dada was explaining things. And
where was your career in 2004?
I was in high school. I was writing songs.
So just starting.
Yeah, I was writing songs. We were kind of like talking about record deals and stuff, but like all that stuff was not really happening yet, right?
It's interesting timing.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the craziest thing was, that was 2004. Then 2007, January, I went to India for my first time. And I went with a few monks from a temple in...
What spurred that?
Well... I fell in love with Maharaji, and I couldn't explain it, and I didn't need to explain it. I didn't give a fuck what anybody thought.
Yeah.
I was like, I love this man, and there's no questioning about it, and he loves me, and this is the surest thing I know, and nobody can tell me otherwise. It was just this super clear thing. I knew I was his, and I knew he was mine. I didn't give a shit. I didn't look on him as like God, or like I didn't look on him as like some saint. I looked on him as my Baba.
Do you have dreams or anything like that? Any interaction?
I mean, a few, but I'd rather not like go into that, a little bit. But there was just no doubt for me, right? And because I loved him so much, I wanted to love what he loved. I wanted to know everything I could about him, which is hard because he's an extremely mysterious being, right? But because Maharaji, chanted Ram, I want to know what Ram is. Because they said Maharaji was like an incarnation of Hanuman, then I wanted to know Hanuman. Because Maharaji was from India, I wanted to know about India. And that's what started it. And I started... continuing on the path, but it wasn't even a path for me. It was just because I love Maharaji. Like, I don't know, what path am I on? I don't know, but I loved him, and that was it. That's all that mattered, And so the whole way I got to India was because I wanted to know where land, he was from and all this stuff, whatever.
So he's your gateway.
Total gateway, the doorway. And the crazy thing for me, one of the highest moments of my whole life, was we were in Allahabad, where Dada, who wrote this book, By His Grace, lived. He was from Allahabad. And we were staying in this ashram, in Allahabad. And I knew the address of Dada's house because it's in the book, 4 Church Lane. But Allahabad's a big city. I don't know, but I thought, is it possible that I could like go to Dada's house? Like in my mind, I'm thinking this, like, because Maharaji was still this like...
Well, it's what I was telling you too, the same kind of idea, like you're on the outside.
Yeah, it's a story. It's a story,
exactly.
And it's like, could this even be real? But like, I don't know. There's all these thoughts.
Yeah.
And we were with these monks in Allahabad, and I had mentioned, for Church Lane. And this one monk says, yeah, well, no problem. We'll get a car right now. We'll go. I'm like, what? You don't understand. This is my everything. Like, I can't, And I remember we all piled in this Jeep and we were driving through the neighborhood. And I remember we turned on Church Lane and I just started uncontrollably weeping. Like, I don't think I've ever cried like that in my life. Like, I wasn't sad. I wasn't happy. I was just weeping.
How old were you?
I was 20 years old. And I remember we pulled up to Dada's house and there was his niece was on the porch, I remember, with her husband and a woman named Ashoka Didi, who was with Maharaji, who I think was Dada's cousin, I think, or something like this. And I can't even describe it in words. I remember everybody got out of the car and I couldn't get out of the car. I was trying to like control myself. I was like, I have no idea why I'm like crying this hard, And I remember I got out of the car and I fell to the ground.
Like prostration style?
Yeah, because it was a dirt, whatever, in front of the house. And I remember I just kept touching the dirt, thinking like Maharaji walked on this dirt. And I had these Ziploc bags with me because like, if you're in like a holy place, I was told you can like take a little, like, and I was just taking handfuls of dirt and putting it in this Ziploc bag.
That's the first thing you're doing.
Yeah, I'm just crying. Dude, I'm crying uncontrollably.
Collecting dirt.
Yeah, I couldn't even control myself. And the most amazing thing, and this is the thing about India or just, I don't know, the way they treat people is we just showed up at this person's home. Okay?
Yeah.
They have no freaking clue who we are.
Yeah, you're a white guy weeping and collecting dirt.
Yeah, they have no idea. They come to the gate. They open up the gate. I remember Dada's niece grabbed me by the hand and brought me right into the house and brought me right into Maharaji's room.
Wow.
And they keep in that house, they keep Maharaji's room exactly the way it was when Maharaji was there. So Maharaji's bed is there, his pictures of him all around, and I just fell on the mattress and just was sobbing. And I just knew, I was like, I just knew that, it's hard to explain.
And how does that manifest since then? I understand. I mean, I'm asking this sort of so you can speak to it, but like the idea of having pictures of him and the role that plays in your life. I mean, what is that role? Do you see your work and your life somewhat in service to that or like guided, or is it more like an inspiration to you?
Well, it's definitely changed over the years where in the beginning, I really thought of Maharaji as a person, and I would kind of, I guess like maybe like look on him as like a guardian angel almost in a way, or somebody I could talk to and somebody I could think about and feel like protected or something like this. But then it started to change, Maharaji started to become a space rather than maybe like a individual person. And at first that kind of freaked me out because I didn't want that. I wanted to have my Baba and his blanket and like my guardian angel, and I could picture walking with him or whatever like this. But Maharaji started to become this space almost, this like vibration, where I wasn't even so much thinking of his body. It was almost starting to become like a feeling.
Right.
And the thing that I think is most powerful about Maharaji for me is, we read so many stories where I think one of Maharaji's main like traits, I guess, could say, was that people would come to him and he would tell you everything you've ever done. And he would tell you everything about you and things that you never told anyone, Ram Dass has a beautiful story about when he first met Maharaji, where, you know, he told him this story about the night before he was thinking of his mother, and, you know, nobody knew that. And Ram Dass said, you know, Maharaji knew everything about me, even the things that I didn't want anybody to know. And he still loved me, you know. And I think for me, that's the space that Maharaji represents. There is a space, you know, there is a being, there is a spirit, whatever you want to call it, that knows everything about us in the past, in the present, and knows everything that's going to happen in the future. And it is a completely, you can't even say neutral. It is a loving awareness, as Baba would say, right? I am loving awareness.
You can't be outside that.
Yeah. And there's nothing to hide from. There's nothing to control, even, in a way. And if we could live in that space 24/7, imagine how different our lives would be. But we don't. We have mind karma. We remember and we forget, you know, and that's just the play of the divine, you know. But I think Maharaji now has kind of become more of a space rather than a particular person, or it's become more of a vibration. And to answer your question, like I think music is so powerful for me because that's when I feel closest to that space. That's when I feel like,
yeah, it makes sense.
you know, I'm like, I'm closest to that space, or like
and the music too is like, it's more non-literal.
Absolutely.
Like it's sort of, it can encompass more of that feeling,
right?
A broader feeling.
And that was the special thing about the song, is because, okay, well, I want to like, right. I want to bring that space, right, or honor that space as best I can. So I don't want to sing a bunch of words and thoughts. I want to vibrate that space as best I can. And that's why I chose to sing the mantra, rather than like come up with a verse like, yo, 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 I'm with Baba Ram Dass.
I can't picture you doing that. But
it'd be funny if I sent you that. Like,
I would have probably been like, all right, now
I'll work on this. I'll see if it'll fit in.
No, what you sent was great. And what I thought was a good sign too is that I was able to, because I just sat down with it to try to mix it in, and very quickly.
Right.
I had a mix within like a couple hours.
Right.
And I was like, this works, I think. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll sleep on it. Right. I woke up and I was like, I'm going to send it to you.
Right.
And I was like, I think it's good. And I didn't really tweak much of anything. I was like kind of a one mix, just a couple of things.
Right,
I didn't move it drastically.
Right.
I just made I introduced you at the beginning and messed around with your background.
Right.
It was easy.
Yeah.
Which is a good sign. Usually.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes
fit in really easily. And also that song for me, I felt like it was okay, but it was missing something and I didn't know what it was.
Right.
And then once you added in that new element of your stuff, it now had this like trifecta element, and it just became much more dynamic and interesting.
Me happy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with the Maharaji stuff, it sounds like it's just more evolved in how it's come to be a part of your life, I suppose. It's kind of interesting then, now knowing all that, like how it kind of comes back full circle, and that this song even came into your beingness. And with Ram Dass. Yeah,
it's interesting because like,
it's a bit of a trip. I knew some of this obviously. But I didn't know that wasn't why. Right. I was like, oh, Trevor's. I was like.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't. That's part of the thing too. Is like I almost couldn't believe it. You know, when I got the tracks, and I was like, oh my god, like. Yeah. How did this happen? You know,
I don't know.
Maharaji.
Well, maybe I do know.
Yeah. But it was just kind of like, it was like, it totally rocked my world in a way. You know, it's just so crazy how things come full circle like that.
Yeah. And do you see like the music that you're creating on your own, like on a day-to-day basis, does it have that sense of devotion to it? Or is it you trying to just sort of not think about it too hard and
absolutely
just create what wants to be created? And
yeah, I mean,
In some people, it's very intentional.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
For me, like, music is, even though maybe I'm not singing mantras and like all this stuff, music comes from that space.
Well, certainly the creation of it. I can
Yeah, and
sympathize
it comes from that space, and it also goes back to that space. I always say from mother to mother, because for me, it's a process of not thinking and getting out of the way and just listening. And these songs come through for me. And then what do? I just sing them right back. You know, that's that kind of dance, you know.
You write a lot, right?
A lot, yeah.
Yeah. For me, it's about repetition.
Yeah.
You know, like just writing lots of things and not being too attached to it.
Yeah, yeah.
As opposed to like, here we go.
Right. I'm the same way. I mean, I don't try to be attached to anything. I'm not like, you know, at the beginning of an album, I'm not like, oh, I'm going to make an album.
Right.
And it's going to be about this. Right. You know, it's not that. It's just like
emerge.
Songs come through, and then the songs tell me what the album's going to be. And the songs tell me what the album's going to be about and what the album's going to be called. And it's just, for me, it's a process of just listening.
Do you tend to, like, for me, I know it's easier for me to play or write stuff in the morning, you know, and it's like a monkey on my back. If I don't do it, I'm kind of thinking about in my head, like, I should probably play, and I feel better once I do it. The day kind of has meaning. Right. And the rest kind of like whatever. Right. For you, is it like that, or are you more of a, it happens when it happens?
It's kind of happens when it happens for me, but like my sweet spot is definitely like 1 a.m.
Oh, night guy.
Yeah, because there's everything else is just not is gone, you know.
Right.
And the night brings a certain mysticism, I think, for me, where everything else is sleeping, and I'm just listening to this other world that doesn't get paid attention to maybe so much.
Are you mostly working from guitar and voice like simultaneously? Is that like your starting point?
No, it depends. It could be anything. I mean, usually it's always the music comes first, though, because like I said, the music creates a vibe. The music creates an energy, a vibration that
like riffs
determines the mood.
For me, it's like chord progressions.
Chord progressions are like, I could be on the guitar, or I could be, you know, on my computer with like different synthesizers or pads or whatever. And
what do you use for your DAW? Or
I use I don't know what that
Logic
means.
Or
yeah.
What does it mean?
Logic. I use Logic.
I don't know what it means either.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, for me, I'm a very much like hit record and just play. Like, I don't know.
Well, you did what you sent me. It sounded pretty good.
I mean, I can get by, you know, but I'm not in your area of like knowing how to mix and knowing like different microphones and different compressors and all that stuff. That's why Logic's good for me, because I just plug in my mic and...
So you kind of get the ideas down?
Yeah, I get the ideas down.
And then you tend to work with producers who are helping you like...
Yeah, either like I'll bring my demos, you know, I make demos all the time, and I'll bring those demos to producers to refine, to maybe re-records the vocals on a nice mic or the guitars on a nice mic or stuff like that. That's kind of how it works.
I heard your demos, though, sound pretty much done. Are you adding in lots of other instruments and parts? Like, I want this little solo thing here, or is it more just pretty raw, like vocal guitar? Yeah,
it's pretty raw. You know, I actually love the demos.
Yeah.
You know,
well,
I wish
heard demoitis, where like you capture something and then it's like you're trying to recreate
you know,
that.
because I feel like there's a certain power to the vibration when that creative energy is just coming through. And you know, sometimes you bring it to producers and you're like, yeah, but we got to re-record this because it's not like sonically there, and you're like, yeah, but like there's a sauce.
The improvisational element of the idea, like the moment where it's happening, is often the magic.
Yeah, that's for me the magic, you know. So for me, there's been a lot of times where it's like I just want to release these demos. Like, screw it.
Have you ever?
I have. Yeah, I did an album.
Love it.
I did an album called Unpack Your Memories, where we just used all the demos. And it was like a 5-song kind of EP. Yeah. And all that was recorded, you know, on my laptop, you know. And I didn't want the magic of the demos to be kind of taken away.
We should set you up with like, just, it wouldn't change your recording process or the difficulty, but it's like a nice preamp.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely like, God, you know, I can't tell you how many times in my mind I'm like, I'm gonna set up like my studio proper.
It wouldn't be that different.
No, but I mean, just like to have like the space where like you have the computer, you have a nice preamp, you got a good mic, and that's it.
You don't need a re-record.
Yeah, for me, it's just I haven't had the time. I want to get nice. I don't even have speakers in this house. You know?
Are you serious?
No, I don't. I have a set of speakers downstairs that aren't even plugged in. You know?
What the fuck?
That's just me, but I don't know. That I'm lazy. You know? But I just have my headphones, and that's where I do everything.
Yeah.
You know, so it's funny.
We both have nice headphones.
Yeah, there we go. But I definitely want to get there for sure.
And are you recording here?
Right here on this desk.
Where's your mic? Do you do it seated?
Yeah. Sit right here on the ground. I've done that
before too. I like sitting down and
singing. Something about sitting on the ground that just kind of...
Yeah.
You know, I don't know, makes it happen for me.
Well, it's kind of interesting. It's sort of kirtan style.
Yeah.
This goes back to India again.
I just like to sit down and feel rooted, I guess.
Huh.
Yeah.
And do you know what kind of mic you're using?
Yeah, I have an SM7.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Those are pretty good. I don't know. I know you have.
Should be under here somewhere. But, it's one of the big... And I record everything through that. My vocal, my guitars.
What's your interface?
I just have an Apogee Duet.
Oh, see, I mean, you've got a pretty clean system going on.
Yeah, but I want to have, I definitely want to get to a point... Yeah, and have, proper speakers in here where I can play stuff for people, you know? Yeah. And, have maybe a computer that's just designated to...
Yeah, production.
So I don't have to.
Well, if you want a list and you want to get,
I know who to call.
I know who to call.
Yeah,
I'll give you a list. Get this stuff.
I know who to call.
Yeah.
I want to definitely have the proper desk and make it happen.
Yeah, you could treat this room. It's pretty dead because of the carpet, but you could add a little more treatment.
I record everything in here, man.
Interesting. Yeah. This is a pretty sacred space.
Yeah, and I like doing it. I like recording it where also I practice my sadhana.
Yeah, you got a lot of images in here.
Yeah.
Can you just run through who we're looking at?
Yeah, we have...
What's this?
That's a picture of Kali, the goddess Kali, who's...
it's intense.
Kind of my... what they would call maybe your Ishta Devata, your chosen deity. It's the Divine Mother. I'm big into the mother. As we can see here, we have Siddhima, a portrait of Siddhima, who is Maharaji's... main, I guess, sidekick, to put it lightly. And then this big portrait is of Holy Mother, who was the wife of Sri Ramakrishna, who was a great saint. And all these other pictures are pictures of things that inspire me. This is one of my favorite pictures.
That looks like the instrument.
Yeah, that's this instrument.
Just with a longer...
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Oh, that's what Krishna Das, I guess, was playing on this song.
So this is a picture of a ball, who's a very famous ball, and the balls are a group that I am extremely inspired by. But this is a famous picture of Nabani Kepa, who was a ball saint, and just his joy on his face.
Yeah, he looks pretty in ecstasy.
I kind of look at it and this is my goal.
Yeah,
when I'm playing music, to be
free.
Lost, you know. And the photographer that took this was a very famous Bengali photographer, and he said he didn't want anything else in the picture except the sky, because a ball is as free as the bird, no boundaries. So, yeah.
But you don't know who the guy is. It's more his.
No, he's a famous ball, Nabani Kepa. Yeah, he's a very famous ball.
Very cool.
Yeah. He's passed, obviously, but...
and you have Maharaji.
Yeah, I got Maharaji everywhere, and all the different saints and the people that inspire me. Pictures of the gods.
Is that Krishna?
No, this is... Kali's on the left.
Oh.
In the middle is Lord Shiva standing on top of the demon Ravana, subduing the ego, pretty much. And then on the right is Hanumanji carrying the mountain that holds Sanjeevani herb, the life-giving herb, when they were in the war against Ravana. The whole army fell. Rama's army fell, and Rama's brother Lakshman fell. And he told Hanumanji to go get this life-giving herb on this holy mountain. So Hanumanji jumped through the air and flew there. When he got to the mountain, he forgot which herb it was, so he just picked up the whole mountain.
Yeah, that's what you do.
That's what you do, bro. So it's a famous form, I guess. Sankatamochan.
And then you have some tobacco. That looks like jungle tobacco.
Where is that?
On the floor?
Oh no, that's juniper.
It is?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like incense.
Yeah, juniper incense, yeah. And I have the Gunga Jal, holy water.
And what's the egg-like thing?
That's the Shiva Lingam. So it's one of the.
Is that really obvious? Am I supposed to know?
No, you're fine.
Yeah.
It's Shiva. That's kind of the form that Shiva's worshipped in, is the cosmic egg, and in all over India, there's Shiva lingams everywhere, and people go. One of the offerings is they pour water over the lingam and say their prayers, and it's actually an image of consciousness, and where the lingam sits in the stand, I guess you could say, it's called the Gaudi Pitan, which represents the Divine Mother. So it's kind of the union, the divine union, a symbol of, I guess, totality.
It's in the center of
the
table.
Yes, and then the snake that is around the lingam, that's rising above the lingam, represents the Kundalini, the Shakti, the divine energy.
It's like the dual serpent DNA strand.
Yeah, pretty much. So I got all the vibes, man. You gotta have the juju.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, we got a lot of it going on here. Wow.
A lot of it's in boxes too. This is just what I
pulled out.
It's
good to change it up. Too.
Yeah. When we moved, but
very cool. Well, thanks, man. I know I gotta get to sound check. So
yeah, I appreciate the letting me be a part of such a special project, and
our honor and Maharaji's grace.
Yeah, really.
So here we are.
And I hope that I hope a lot of people get a lot of benefit from it. It's really awesome.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Jai Ma.
Well, there it is. That's Mr. Trevor Hall. Thank you, Trevor, so much for coming on the show, giving us some background into your process and letting us look into your world there. It's pretty special being in someone's creative lab space. And it was great to see Trevor in his home environment too, after spending last year with him on the road, which was such a magical experience. I learned a lot just watching him perform and getting a lot of time in the van driving around the country. It was just rad. So if you haven't heard it already, this is Mind Karma, and I'm going to play it in full when I'm done jabbering here in just a second. But I want to encourage you to check out the whole Chapter 1, East Forest Ram Dass, on any music platform that you enjoy. Spotify, Apple, all that kind of jazz, Bandcamp. And thank you for giving this podcast a review. Send a note to say hey, info@eastforest.org. Otherwise, folks, you keep walking your walk. Don't take any shit, but if you do, you do with grace. Okay, here it is. This is Mind Karma in full, East Forest and Ram Dass.
Our karma is our mind. And the mind stands in the way of a clear view of God. Our minds give us clouded perceptions. This incarnation has in it individuality. individualism leads to war and anger and insecurity and fear. Our karma is our mind. Our karma is our mind. The mind stands in the way of a clear view of God. Our minds give us clouded perceptions.